do a very good job of that. Because of that, I'm easily distracted as such. If I'm focused on this and something else is brought to my attention, and if I try to divide my attention, normally I just end up overlooking something. I end up doing a pretty poor job on both things. So I like to stay focused. But I've realized because I'm not really good at multitasking, I have this propensity to lose things. I will come in at night or something with my keys, and I intend to put them here, and something will get my attention the moment I walk in, and before I can put my keys there, I will put them somewhere else to address whatever that is that has distracted me. And then a few minutes later, I'm like, where did I put my keys? And I have found my keys in the weirdest of places. I found them in the freezer one day. I found them sitting next to the fireplace one day. I found them in my son's on top of his dresser, sitting behind some models that I had been playing with him and set them down and forgot, and I'm looking for them early in the morning. He's sound asleep, and I'm like, where in the world are my keys? I remember when I was younger, I had such a problem with losing things, especially my keys, that I bought one of those keychains that you can put on there, and you whistle, and it beeps. I was like, oh, this is the most wonderful invention ever for me. The problem with that invention is that it didn't beep just with a whistle. It beeped on just about any noise. And if you roll over at night or whatever, the bed creaks or something like that, it starts beep, 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 beep. And you jump up thinking it's a fire or something. And so after about a week, that was thrown in the garbage. And I said, okay, that's not going to work. But it's interesting. We all tend to lose things periodically. And I find this interesting. In the Hindu religion, now you understand the Hindus have multiple gods. They have a god for just about everything as such. Poseidon is one of their gods, and he is the god of the pathfinder. He is a god to help people find the path they are looking for. But he's also the god of lost objects. And if you lose something, let's say your keys and you're Hindu, you would pray to Poseidon to ask him to show you where your keys are. You would get down on your knees and pray and say, Poseidon, where are my keys? And this God will show you where your keys are. And I just thought that was kind of trivial to have almost a God that is there just to help me find the stuff that I lost. And I got to thinking about it. Our God also helps us find lost things. But our God is not so concerned about the trivial thing like lost keys. Our God is helping us find lost souls. Amen. Friends, you understand that's what God is all about. That's what Jesus is all about. To find people who are lost. We get easily distracted so often in things that we begin to think, well, I can't find my keys, I can't find my keys, can't find my keys. And when you've got a meeting in 30 minutes and it takes you 40 minutes to get there and you still haven't found your keys, it may seem like a big deal. But you understand, as big of a deal as it is, it's never more important than the people around you. Those things are what's most important. Some of you this morning, as you're sitting here, honestly, if you were to search your heart, you feel lost. And you sit there and you may even ask, can God really know me? I mean, let's be honest. In our world, there are 7 billion people. Can God really know me? Can God really know who I am? Can God really know where I'm at or anything about me with all these people? The example in this story this morning, I believe, speaks a resounding yes to us. For you see, any soul that is hungry for God will find that God is hungry for that soul. Any soul that goes looking for God will find the only reason you're looking for God is because God came looking for you first. And as you open your heart to God, you'll find His has always been wide open for you. Before we come to Scripture this morning, we're going to be looking at Luke chapter 19, beginning in verse 1. But before we go there, I just ask that we would bow our heads and have a word of prayer so that we can focus our minds and our hearts on what Christ would have us know and do this morning. Father, we just thank you for this day. We just ask that your message and the understanding of your word would be plain and clear this morning. Father, there are many of us that are struggling with our lives. Some of us, we feel lost. And Father, in our state of lostness, we need to know that you are there and that you're with us and you're there for us. And that, Father, when we feel the world is against us, we know that you're fighting for us. You're standing with us. Father, some of us, we can claim that knowledge, claim that salvation. But we also understand that in our lives, we get so preoccupied with other things that we forget to pay attention to the lost people around us, to those that need your love. And Father, I just ask that you would break our hearts this morning for the urgency to do your ministry and to receive and answer your call. It's in the name of Jesus, by the power of the Spirit, we ask these things. Amen. Amen. This morning, as we're looking in Luke chapter 19, verse 1, I want us to look at a story that many of us find very familiar, much like Sunday night, as we're talking about the story of Jonah. Most people, when they think of Jonah, they say Jonah and the well, okay? When we think of Zacchaeus, what do we think of? Zacchaeus climbed the what? Tree. The tree. Somebody want to say sycamore tree. It's a tree. So he climbed the tree. So when we think of Zacchaeus, we think of the tree. But just like Jonah, the well is actually only found in 3 verses in the entire book. The star of that story is not the well. It's God. You understand, when we come to Zacchaeus, many times we think of Zacchaeus and the tree. But the tree is not the star of the story. Jesus is. And I want us to look this morning at how this narrative unfolds. And you see that it begins with Zacchaeus' desire for Christ. He has a desire for Christ. Look in chapter 19, verse 1. He, being Jesus, entered Jericho and was passing through. There was a man named Zacchaeus who was a chief tax collector, and he was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but he was not able because of the crowd, since he was a short man. So running ahead, he climbed up a sycamore tree to see Jesus, since he was about to pass that way. Now, let's pause there for just a minute, and let's talk about a few things. I want you to see Zacchaeus has a desire for Jesus. Now, it says that Jesus is passing through, and there was a man named Zacchaeus who was a chief tax collector. Now, you understand, the fact that he's a chief tax collector tells us right off the bat, he's got a lot going against him. He's got a lot going against him. You understand, the tax collectors were Jewish men who worked for the Roman Empire in communities of Jewish people. Now, they were there responsible because they were knowledgeable of the community. That's why they were Jews. They wouldn't bring a Roman in because the Roman didn't know the people. So they needed somebody who knew the people, who would know if they were trying to cheat or hide or do something like that. They would know the people. So they would pull Jews out to fill this position. Now, you understand, this meant that the other Jews hated the tax collectors. Because the tax collectors, how many of us, we say, oh yeah, my best friend is the IRS, amen? We don't like tax collectors. If you work with the IRS, we still love you, we just don't like you much. But you understand the reality. Even in today's time, we don't think very fondly of tax collectors. But in that day of time, they were thought of even less than, because back then the tax collectors would defraud the people. They would come in, and the Roman Empire perhaps may charge 10%. We would say you owe 15%. Because that tax collector then would keep that 5% for himself. And that's how many times they made a lot more money by defrauding the people, by practicing extortion. Because the reality is, if I came to you and said you're responsible for paying this, you had no option but to pay. If you didn't pay, we would simply seize your house and kick you out, and you would lose everything. And I, as the tax collector, had that power. So the people did not like the tax collectors. Not only that, but they were Jews working for the Romans. So they saw them as traitors. So amongst the Jewish community, the people did not like, they resented and almost hated the tax collectors. But you understand this. We say the tax collectors worked for the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire did not have any affection for the Jews being tax collectors either. So the Romans didn't like them. The Jews didn't like them. So you understand, really, this was a man with no friends. This is a man that everyone despised. And to make matters worse, Zacchaeus was not a tax collector. He was a chief tax collector. That meant he was up over several others. He was kind of the supervisor, as such, over the tax collectors. So not only did they hate these guys for cheating, they hated Zacchaeus even more because he made them cheat them. Because they had to pay Zacchaeus money, the tax collectors did, to stay in his good graces. Or else they would be kicked off of being a tax collector. So Zacchaeus was a man despised by the people. Despised by everybody. It's interesting, when you read about Zacchaeus, there's no mention of a family. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't have one, I don't know. To assume something that the Bible doesn't state as fact is a mistake. But I believe that it's a safe assumption that if he had a family, they weren't very proud of him. And there's not much interaction there. So you understand, this is a man literally who basically has nobody. But he does have one thing. Look what it says. He was a chief tax collector and he was rich. He was rich. Now I love this. He had everything that he needed in life from the physical standpoint. He probably had a nice house. He probably actually had people over at his house, the other tax collectors and other people. They wanted to pretend to like Zacchaeus at least, because they didn't want to suffer his wrath. But I have a feeling he knew that more than that was surface rather than deep, heartfelt relationships. And that they were there to get what they could get from Zacchaeus, and not because of Zacchaeus himself. And I love this. When we talk about Zacchaeus, we think of this man who is just a lively type of guy, climbing up a tree and everything else. And we kind of tell that story with smiles on our faces. But remember, going into the story, Zacchaeus was a man despised and hated. Now, he was despised and hated. And you may say, well, that was unfair that they would treat him that way. Zacchaeus had earned that. He was a chief tax collector. He chose to be that. He chose to live that way. He chose to defraud the people. So make no mistakes about it. This was not a nice man. This was a wicked and evil man. And that's who he is. And that's how the community and everybody around him treats him, as a wicked and evil man. It says that he was rich. You understand, just like the rich young ruler we've talked about previously, we realize that for Zacchaeus, he realized that wealth was not enough to satisfy him. And he goes out looking for something else. He knows that something is missing in his life. And he goes out. Look at verse 3. It says he was trying to see who Jesus was. He was trying to see who Jesus was. And I love this. The reality is he didn't know who Jesus was. He'd heard stories. He'd heard rumors. He didn't know that Jesus was the Son of God. He didn't know that Jesus was the Savior of the world. He did not know that Jesus would die on the cross to pay the penalty for our sins. But there was something about the name Jesus that drew him to this man. There was a longing in his heart, a hole in his heart. He realized the things of this world, the riches of this world, was not enough to satisfy the longing and desire in his soul. I love the story of a businessman out walking on the beach one day, and he comes across a fisherman. The fisherman is there next to his boat, and the fisherman is actually sleeping. The businessman goes and wakes up the fisherman. He said, "What are you doing?" The fisherman said, "I was resting." And the businessman said, "Why are you not out fishing?" And the fisherman said, "Well, I've caught all the fish I need." And the businessman said, "Well, what type of idea is that? You need to go out and catch more fish. You need to catch more than what you need." The fisherman said, "Why would I do that?" He said, "You need to go out and catch more fish so you can sell them and make money and buy a nicer boat. Then you need to go out and catch more fish with that nicer boat so you can buy better nets. And then when you get the bigger nets, you catch more fish, and then you can pay somebody else to get another boat and drive out there with you, and then you can have more boats and more nets and catch more fish, and then you can do this." And the fisherman said, "Why would I do all that?" And he said, "Well, there's a point in time where you can begin to have your own fleet of fishermen, and then you can have as much money as I do, and then you can sit and rest and enjoy life." To which the fisherman just said, "That's what I was just doing." Friends, you understand? Wealth, the material things of this world, we put a lot of stock in them. Our culture, our society, puts a lot of stock in wealth. The Bible is very clear. All that stock is worthless without Jesus in our lives. Amen. This is what King Zacchaeus does. He wants to find out something about Jesus. He wants to discover who Jesus was. And it says, so running ahead, he climbed up a sycamore tree to see Jesus. Now friends, I want you to think about this for just a moment. In biblical times, we see the example of Esau and Jacob, and Esau runs to meet Jacob, and we say he shouldn't have done that. During that day and time, men don't show emotions. They shouldn't be running. The parable of the prodigal son, the father runs out to meet him, and we say, well, the father would not have been looked highly upon in that society because men were not supposed to run, because they're not supposed to show emotions. And we say, men, we're not supposed to be doing things like that. What do you think the people thought when they saw a grown man climb a tree? I mean, this is not something that they're just going to look at, oh, Zacchaeus, he's back up the tree. Man, that's not an everyday occurrence. That's weird. I mean, understand, they don't like Zacchaeus, and all of a sudden they're here watching Jesus. There's a parade here. They're here looking for Jesus. And all of a sudden they look up and they see Zacchaeus going up a tree. Do you know what they're thinking? They're saying, man, that guy's nuts. He's lost it. He's crazy. What's wrong with him? Zacchaeus was willing to do whatever to see Jesus.
Right.
He didn't care what people thought of him. He didn't care the sacrifice he had to make. Jesus had become that important to him. Friends, let me ask you, would you embarrass yourself for Jesus? Would you bring shame upon your name to stand for Jesus? Would you climb up in a tree knowing people are going to say, man, you're nuts, to be for Jesus? See, it all started with Zacchaeus because he had a desire for Christ. But I want you to see that desire was transformed. That desire transformed to a devotion for Christ. Has a devotion for Christ. Look in verse 5. Now here's where the good stuff starts coming. It says, when Jesus came to the place. Now what place is that? I want you to think for a moment. The place of divine opportunity. The place of divine appointment. You see, I believe that God has in our lives moments where we meet people, moments where we talk to people, moments where we interact with people that He has preordained as times to share the gospel. Times that they are ready to hear, and times that we are equipped and prepared to speak it. God has ordained these God-divine appointments in our lives. Now, sometimes we can just blow by. I know the other day I had an appointment with a friend of mine, a pastor. This was a few months ago, and I had some things going on, and I got busy here today, and all of a sudden my phone went off, and I looked over there, and I saw somebody was calling me. I saw the pastor's name, and I was like, uh-oh. Because I missed my opportunity. I missed my appointment. Friends, I allowed other things to come into my life to take away the focus that I missed that appointment. I had set an appointment. I had it. It was a certain time, a certain opportunity that I had. And I missed it because I became distracted. Friends, some of us, we miss the appointments God has given us because we get so distracted with life.
That's right.
Friends, there is no life outside the ministry and the gospel of Jesus Christ. If we begin to believe that and live that way, our lives look radically different. But friends, we see here that Jesus, it says, He came to the place. I want you to see something pretty awesome. It says He came to the place. He looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down today. Hurry up and come down because today I must stay at your house. Now, here's what's pretty awesome about that. He doesn't look up at the tree and say, hey, dude, come down. Hey, Nutsy, come down. He looks up and says, hey, Zacchaeus. How do you know his name? Now, here's the reality. It could have been that Jesus heard people say, hey, look at Zacchaeus up in that tree. You know, I mean, they could have heard that. It's kind of like George of the Jungle and Zacchaeus. Amen. That's a biblical question. But the reality is, I don't know how Jesus knew his name, but Jesus knows his name, and He calls him by his name. Do you understand the reason for that? Because Jesus is getting personal with Zacchaeus. It's not just a, hey, dude. I've got a friend of mine, he's a minister, and he's not that old, but he's a minister, and he calls everybody Doc. He'll come up, hey, Doc, how you doing? I mean, he's like Bugs Bunny. What's up, Doc? You know, and everything else. And that's how he talks. And he calls people Doc, and he just says, hey, Doc, how you doing today, Doc? Good to see you, Doc, and everything else. I realized a while back why he does that. Because he doesn't know our names. He doesn't know. He forgets people's names. And he'll call people Doc. Because, see, those people who aren't doctors aren't offended to be called Doc. And those people who are doctors, they just say, well, he knows I'm a doctor. So, you know, he just calls everybody Doc. And you understand that most of the doctors are either DMins or PhDs. And I've told you before how to pronounce PhD, right? You know, but he calls them Doc. And I said, what's up, Doc? How you doing, Doc? Well, how's it going today, Doc? And everything. Because he doesn't know their name. Now, I don't get offended by that because I know him. But the reality is, we are fallible. We don't always address people on a personal level. I mean, I remember when I was a young person, and I say young person, I was like in high school, and I learned the dangers of saying, "How are you today?" Don't ever ask that question unless you really want to know. I had a loving man in our church, Alvin Reeves. He's gone on to be with the Lord many years ago, but he was one of those men that you just wanted to be Alvin when you grew up. I mean, he was that stalwart Christian tower. And I remember one day I was seeing Alvin, and I said, "Hey, Alvin, how are you?" And he said, "Well," and I stood there for 45 minutes as he told me how he was. And I learned my lesson very early. Don't ever ask that question again. When I see Alvin, Al, it's good to see you. But the reality is we are so quick that we'll talk to people, we'll interact with people, but we don't really stop and care about people. And sometimes, even the people we care about, we don't really know. I was out at the soccer fields earlier this week, and there was somebody that walked by me. Somebody I had spent a lot of time in meetings with and everything else in church. And I saw them out at the soccer field, didn't know they had anybody out there. And they walked by me, and they look at me, and I look at them, and I'm like, "I know that person. Who are they?" And they're like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Hey!" I'm like, "Who is that?" And then it hits me a little bit later, "Oh, yeah, so-and-so. Now I know him. I've had conversations with them. I've eaten meals with them." But they weren't where I was supposed to see them at. They were at the soccer field, not the church. I knew them from the church. If I'd have seen them at the church, I'd have known them. But you understand this? Let me give you another example. My son can be across the field, and I cannot clearly see his face. But I can look at his body language. I can see the way he stands. I can see the way he moves. And I know that that's my son. I can pick him out of a group of boys without ever seeing his face. Why? Because I know my son. Now, friends, that doesn't mean I don't care about anybody else, but it does mean that I'm not taking time to get to know people the way I should. That's a fault from all of us. We need to know people. What I love about Jesus is he intimates here that he knows Zacchaeus already and wants to get to know him better. We need to let this world know that God knows them. And we are the hands, the feet, the mouth, the eyes, and the ears of Jesus Christ. And if we truly believe that, then when we go out, we have to learn to begin to call people by name. And when I say that, understand, I'm not saying you have to memorize everybody's name. I'm saying you've got to approach them in a point of focused relationship. You've got to let them know you want to know who they are and that they are important to you because they're important to God. Yeah. As you go on, it says, when he came to the place, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, because today I must stay at your house." Now, look what happens in verse 6. So he quickly came down and welcomed him joyfully. Think about that. He quickly came down. He's wearing one of these robes. That couldn't have been very graceful. It says he didn't care. He quickly came down and welcomed him joyfully. Now, how does Zacchaeus respond? He's responded with great joy. You know that our world is hurting so bad. There's so many people all alone out there. They just need to know somebody loves them. When you show them true love, when you really show them that you really care, our world is absent of love in many cases. We live in a world of Facebook. I hate Facebook. People say, "Why don't you use Facebook?" Because you can't express love on Facebook. You can express a lot of things, but not love. You don't get that. It's impersonal. You understand? Here's the reality. The world needs to feel love. Now, I'm not telling you you can't be on Facebook. I'm just saying that if Facebook is how you build relationships, you're missing something. We need to show the world what real love is all about. And I've seen this. I've seen the worst of sinners. When they are loved on, they respond in joy. Because they haven't felt it. And they want to know it's sincere and genuine. We as Christians sometimes, we just kind of pat people on the head and pat people on the back and say, "Hey, I love you, have a good day, bye-bye," and we walk away. We never stop to get to know them. We never stop to cry with them. We never stop to walk with them. We never stop to kneel with them. We never stop to work with them. We never stop for them. Jesus stopped. If you go back to verse 1, it says, he entered Jericho and was passing through. So what was Jesus? He was passing through. You understand, Jesus never intended to stay. That was not his intent. Jesus was not intending to stay in Jericho. Zacchaeus derailed all that. Friends, sometimes we see it and we simply need to stop for people in our lives, whether we plan to or not. It says Zacchaeus responded joyfully. But then look in verse 7. See, here's the problem. Now I want you to realize in verse 7 here, we're not talking about just heathens. We're talking about people who previously had been adoring Jesus, had been looking up to Jesus, celebrating Jesus. These would be as close as we could probably come to point to church people. And look at what the church people do in verse 7. It says, all who saw it began to complain. There's Southern Baptists, amen. All who saw it began to complain. He's gone to lodge with a sinful man. Now, here's the problem that they had. They looked and they saw Zacchaeus and they didn't like him. And they said, well, this man is an evil man. He's a wicked man. We've already discussed that. He was. No, hands down. There's no question about that. And then they look at Jesus and they say, well, how dare Jesus go to this evil and wicked man's house? He's going to a sinful man. And so that brought Jesus down a notch in their eyes. Well, here's the problem with that. They were so caught up in their ideas that they could not see the need and the urgency of the soul for Zacchaeus. They didn't care about Zacchaeus. You know, they didn't think, well, maybe Jesus can get Zacchaeus to change. They said, we don't want to be around Zacchaeus. And you should not want to be around Zacchaeus. And sometimes what happens is we get so focused on our ideas that we forget that the ideas are not important, that the ministries that we do are not important, but rather what's important are the people around us. That's what's important. And friends, they forgot that Zacchaeus is important. He was an evil man, yet he, in God's plan, was important. Friends, we don't know who is or who isn't important to God because God says He wills that all should live and that none should perish. So for me, that says that all people are important to God, and we ought to treat people as if they are important to God. And that means that we are to love them regardless.
That's right.
Now, friends, I want to be very honest with you. Some people are easier to love than others. I've known some rascals in my life. And some of the biggest rascals I've ever met are in church, amen? It's the reality of it. Some people are just want, as I think I've told you this before, my grandpa used to say, take them out to the wood shop with an axe and not come back with anything but the axe, amen? You know, that's the reality. Those are the type of people you just get, But yet, what does the Bible say? Love them. Love them. You understand, had Jesus not been Jesus, had He just been a man, Zacchaeus would have taxed him. Think about that for a minute. But Jesus offered Zacchaeus something no one else had. He offered him love. He said, Zacchaeus, and I love this. This is going to be really important. It says, Zacchaeus, come down. We're going to your house today. That's all that we're told that Jesus says. It says, Zacchaeus came down quickly with joy. And as he came down, though, here's what happened. The people began to say, oh, he's going to eat with sinners. Now, you realize a lot of times when things like this grumbling happens in the Bible, it's kind of under breath. It's kind of like Jesus senses this. Jesus knows that they're thinking this, but they don't actually say this. Well, this is not one of those cases. They're actually verbally loud enough that Zacchaeus himself hears. He hears. And look what happens. Now, how do I know that? Because of what the Bible says. We lose a little bit in the English translation. But it says in verse 8, but Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord. Now, this word stood there. There are times where I wish I had a time machine and could go back in time. And this is one of the, this is almost, to me, would be almost as awesome to see as the crucifixion itself. Because what happens here right now, what this word says here, this Greek word, when it says he stood up, it's not saying that he was kneeling or laying down, that he fell when he got out of the tree. Rather, it's saying that he hears what the people are saying, and he stands up and squares his shoulders. And it gives this image that he has been walking a defeated life, and now he stands in victory. And then it says he stands and he speaks to the Lord. And the reason I would love to see this is not to see Zacchaeus. I think it's awesome. But I would love to see the expression on the face of Jesus the moment Zacchaeus begins to do this. Because Jesus has told him nothing. Remember the rich young ruler? He says, what do I need to do? Jesus said, you got to do this. Many times, Jesus, what I got to do? You got to do this. Zacchaeus, all he says, Zacchaeus, come down. We're going to your house today. And Zacchaeus come down. He's not been told anything by God. And yet look what he says. And as he begins to speak, I just almost think Jesus had to be beaming ear to ear, Perhaps tears running down his eyes to see a lost person converted. But look what Zacchaeus says. It says he stood up, he squares his shoulders. He's not going to live a defeated life anymore. He's not going to let the naysayers pull him down. Here's what he says. He said, Lord, look, I'll give half my possessions to the poor. Lord, and if I have extorted anything from anyone, I'll pay back 4 times as much. Now here's what Zacchaeus does right off the bat. He says, look, God, here's Jesus. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give half my belongings to the poor. Don't need them. Don't want to be rich anymore. Because richness did not bring me joy. You bring me joy. Imagine that. Jesus bringing somebody joy. But Zacchaeus says, you bring me joy. I will give half of everything I own to the poor. Then he says, for those people that I have defrauded, extorted, I will pay back 4 times what I took from them. Now, this is extremely significant. Let me explain why. In the Bible, it's very clear what extortion is. Very clear what fraud is. What Zacchaeus has done as a tax collector is committed fraud. He's committed extortion. The Bible is clear that when you've done that and you want to reconcile, what you need to do is pay back what you owe plus 20%. That's what it is. So for instance, if I stole or defrauded you $10, if I extorted $10 from you, then I would pay you back that $10 plus 20%, which would be a grand total of $12, right? So that's what I owe you. To reconcile, to make us right together, I would owe you $12. Because that's what the Bible says. Now, here's what Zacchaeus says, though. Zacchaeus says, for anybody I've defrauded, anybody that I have extorted money from, I will pay them back 4 times. So instead of paying you $12, you're now going to get $40. There's a significant difference between 40 and 12. Now think about this, friends. This shows that Zacchaeus was serious about his sin. He was serious about restoring relationship. Because if somebody comes up and they extorted $12 or $10 out of you and they give you $12, you're still because, well, they only did that because they got to do that. You know, God told them to do it. And that's why. And so they're paying you back what to do. It's the bare minimum and everything else doesn't make you happy. But think about it for a minute. If somebody took $10 from you and they gave you $40 back with an apology to that, that gets your attention. That gets your attention because that's way more than what he was responsible for. And it shows the seriousness of it. There's one other thing you need to know here. As I said, fraud is paying back plus 20%. Thievery, when you steal something, according to the Bible, is meant to be paid back 4 times what it is. So Zacchaeus owns up to it and he says, you know what? I don't look at what I did as fraud. I don't look at it as extortion. I look at it that I stole their money. And I'm going to pay it back as if I stole it, as if I were a thief. And this is what Zacchaeus does. You understand, when Jesus gets a hold of you, you're different. And it's easy to be different. Now, there's one last thing I want you to see here. Jesus, he says, today salvation has come to this house. Now, I want to pause right there for just a minute. Because there's something important that we need to know. Jesus never told Zacchaeus what to do. Zacchaeus comes out and he volunteers, this is what I'm going to do. And he handles a big sin in his life. The sin of him being a crook as such. The sin of the money in his life. He handles that. Now you understand though, this was not the only sin in Zacchaeus' life. This was not the only sin. This was not the only area that he struggled in. There were a lot of other areas I'm sure he struggled in. However, this was of great importance. This was a great priority. And Zacchaeus handles it. Zacchaeus owns up to it. Zacchaeus admits it. And he lays it out there. And I love this. Jesus says that's enough. Now, it doesn't mean that Zacchaeus doesn't have more work to do later. But what Jesus says is we have found common ground. We are now walking together. And he loves Zacchaeus. Friends, as I said earlier, the worst thing we can do is have gripes and grumblings. We need to find the common ground and walk on it. That's what Jesus does, and I love that. Zacchaeus says, I'm going to sell or give half of everything I have to the poor. I'll pay back 4 times anybody that I've cheated. And Jesus says, Zacchaeus, that's a great start. Let's go eat. Have you ever stopped to think about that? Jesus just invites himself over to Zacchaeus' house. Says, Zacchaeus, we're going to go eat your food today. And Zacchaeus never complains. Why? Because it's Jesus. Friends, you understand, the Lord will call us to make sacrifices in our lives. And we should love Him so much that we don't complain. Why? Because it's Jesus. And we know that any sacrifice we make is trivial in accordance to His love. As he goes on and you read that scripture, it says not only has salvation been brought to this house, but it says because he too is a son of Abraham. Remember, the Jewish people hated Zacchaeus. But Jesus reminds them he too is a son of Abraham. Friends, let me tell you something. If you're a born-again child of God, you are a believer. You're not a son of Abraham. You're a son of God, the Heavenly Father. You're a daughter of God, the Heavenly Father. Families aren't perfect, are they? Amen? Families sometimes have problems and disputes. I've got a rascal of a brother, and we don't always agree with each other. There have been times where we've been almost viciously, aggressively acting towards each other. But I've always said this, and I truly mean it, that if he ever called me and said, Dale, I need you, I'd be down there in a heartbeat.
Sure. Right.
Highway patrol, beware, I'm coming. The reality is, it doesn't matter. Because he's family. Family loves family. Friends, that's what the Bible's teaching us here. Zacchaeus was family. Jesus responds to him as family. There are people living next door to you that you don't like. You need to start looking at them as family. You need to start seeing them as family. There are people that you work with that you don't like. You need to be looking at them as family. And friends, if we begin to live our lives as Jesus did, and we look for that place of divine appointment that God has given us, God will work it out. But we have to not be like the people in verse 7, holding on to our ideas and our concepts, but we'll be willing to turn it loose and allow God to work freely and fully. And He does that. As we saw Zacchaeus, he quickly came out of the tree and welcomed him joyfully. Friends, understand this. Nothing else mattered at that point than Jesus. Let me ask you right now this morning, what else matters in your life other than Jesus? I've been challenging you guys, our congregation, with a goal. We need to have 5 baptisms by the end of August. 5 baptisms. And how are we going to do that? We're going to have at least 5 gospel presentations each. Over 500 gospel presentations by the end of August. Some of you haven't even started yet. I challenge you. Start now. Friends, it's not too late to start now. But here's the continuation of that. See, when we get 5 people baptized, we can't just say, woohoo, we did it, we got it. Rather, we've got to look at those people and say, okay, now what? See, it's not good enough just to get them baptized, just to get them saved. Then we have to walk with them in their development as believers. We've got to treat them as family. Walk with them, love them. And we say, well, we've got to put them in discipleship. That means we've got to have this book and have them read through that book. That's not what discipleship is all about. Discipleship is walking with somebody one-on-one and teaching them how to live for Christ. That takes time. I can give a book and say, read the book. It takes commitment to walk with somebody, to show them the truth. And that's what we need to be doing. So as we begin to share gospel conversations, we need to follow up with discipleship conversations when they receive the gospel. And begin to talk to them about what it means for them personally to walk with Jesus Christ. You've got to be personally involved. The ministers can't do it. You know, I love Drew, but he's not Superman. I'd ask him to unbutton his shirt just to show there's no tights under there, but I don't think there is. You're not wearing tights, are you? Okay, he says no. He can't do it. I can't do it. None of us can do it. That's not what we're here for. We're here to equip you to do it. And friends, that means that you need to go to your family. You need to go to your neighbors, and you need to walk with them, talk with them, pray with them, serve them. Friends, some of you this morning have never accepted Christ, and you're just like Zacchaeus. And this morning, you need to accept Christ. You need to quickly come down from whatever hurt you're on and welcome Jesus joyfully. Some of you have accepted Christ. And this morning, you need to make a greater commitment that your acceptance of Christ is not just to receive salvation, but it's to live the life He's called you to live. It's to work as He's called you to work. It's to serve as He's called you to serve. It's to be who He's called you to be, no matter what. That's what we're to be. And friends, that's what I challenge you as a church. We are a family, and we need to stand up and be a family. Jesus said, we're going to your house today. And He says, this household has received salvation. Friends, how many of you are helping others receive salvation through the glory and the grace of Jesus? I hope the Holy Spirit takes a sledgehammer to your heart this morning and convicts you above all doubt of where you need to be and what you need to be doing, that you have no doubt about it and no way around it. Friends, as we have in just a moment, Drew's going to come forward and play for us, and as he comes down and begins to play, that you would just prayerfully consider where you are with God. And I just want to say this. It's not my job to convict, so I'm not going to go too far with this, but I'm going to say this. If you've not started your 5 gospel presentations, and you've been here before today, and you've not had 5 gospel presentations, my simple question to you is this. What does that say about your spiritual walk with Jesus Christ? That's a question for you to answer, not for me. And I won't play assumptions with that. But what does it say about your spiritual walk with Christ if you're not willing to have 5 gospel conversations? So I invite you to stand with me, and as we stand, that you would bow your heads and close your eyes.